But Jadeite specifically, I think this man just wants to be a small business owner. I don't think that he cares about the Negaverse. He just wants, because he's always starting small businesses. Always.
Yes. And that's why he's like hiring like commercials, like, and his businesses are wildly successful.
Yes.
I agree. I totally agree. And it's nice to see him like really blossoming in this episode.
Welcome to Sailor Moon Therapy Hour. We are your hosts, Audrey and
I'm Alison. And we are not therapists. We just watch anime. And the anime we watch is Sailor Moon, where we take turns watching the original DiC dub from the 90s and then the hopefully more accurate to the intention sub. Audrey, tell us, this episode's going to be a little different. Tell us what's happening differently this episode.
It sure is.
Confess your shame.
Immediately the cough goes back.
I killed her.
One of the things that's different about this episode is that I am still recovering from COVID and thus have a cough. And so every time you make me laugh, it kills me a little more.
I destroy more of her lungs.
Just a little bit more. The other thing, and the thing that you had in mind when you asked your question, is what is different about this episode. And that is that if you had listened to this previous week's episode, I did have a little forward at the beginning of that I lost my own footage from the original recording of this episode. And it's so good. And also we're just completionists anyway, that like 6 to 8 months later, we're like, we got to redo it then.
Yes. So we're returning months later to episode 3/4 and re-recording it. But we have decided, since we are returning, to switch who watched the dub and who watched the sub. But neither of us, at least in my experience, I didn't really remember it very well. So it was still kind of like, what's happening? It's going to be fascinating. This is a weird episode. Definitely worth redoing. And I do want to say that we're going to try to avoid too much of, I kind of remember from last time, but there'll probably be some of that. Because I kind of remember from last time that this was weird.
So you get to feel the pain that I had from last time.
Yeah, they definitely made substantial changes in the dub. This is weird because, okay, I hesitate to say that it's better, but I think it is less offensive. I think this is a rare case where DiC improved the episode, not universally, but definitely in some spots from what I remember. We'll see if we still agree with that as we go back through it. But I was like, oh, they took that weird part out, and they took that weird part out, and they took that weird part out, and they changed what that conversation was about. And it's interesting, all the choices they made. They changed a lot. This was heavily edited.
So the title of this episode is, in the dub, it was called Slim City. And in the sub, it was called Learn How to Be Skinny from Usagi. And just as you might guess from these titles, from context clues, trigger warning, these episodes are heavily focused on weight shaming.
Diet culture, fat shaming.
If those are going to be triggers for you, then maybe skip this one. Or not, I don't know, because we're going to shit talk them.
Because, of course, DiC didn't translate the second episode of the anime. This is the third translated episode on the DiC version and the fourth translated episode on the original anime. So there's some weirdness there in terms of pre-existing context.
Yeah, all the numbers are screwed up, like just immediately, because episode 2 wasn't translated. Do you want to give the short summary?
Yes. So I did the dub. I think traditionally, whoever did the dub takes the lead. I mean, I don't know if it's traditionally at this point in our recording, but we're going back in time with the knowledge of the future, baby.
Yes. We're from the future.
Crazy things await. So in this episode, the premise is it's a Monster of the Week episode. We're back with Jadeite is our bad guy, and his plan is to harvest the energy of people that are obsessed with exercise and diet and fitness. So he has started an evil fitness club where he is draining people's energy, and Sailor Moon and some of her school friends get sucked into the club and almost get all their energy drained, but Sailor Moon figures it out, sort of, and stops the bad guy. And there's a lot of discussion of weight and exercise and dieting that is kind of a thing. I would like to say that it started out strong in the English dub because we had our sort of, not a recap, but a pre-cap forward, where they said, they're talking about the episode and they say that the bad guy is making us believe that only the very thin can be beautiful, an extremely dangerous notion, which would have been a stronger statement if they hadn't put it over a picture of a round spherical Sailor Moon with a pig face, which undermined the message a little bit.
And so does the whole rest of the episode undermine.
Yeah. So again, we start with it's in the dub, you get that Star Wars title crawl, which I'll never get over. I love it. Like in a galaxy far, far away. And we also start with Sailor Moon in the bathtub. I would like to say that I just found out, because I was looking through the wiki article, that in the English dub, they edited the water level up higher on her chest.
You know, because I did notice when I was watching the sub, I was like, oh my God, this is a child and I see her cleavage. Like, this makes me really uncomfortable. And I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Whereas I was like, this seems fine. I mean, it was a little odd that it was a bath scene, but it didn't seem like sexualized at all. So differences.
Yeah. You know what? I think I'm okay with that.
I'm weirdly okay with a lot of the changes Deke made. She gets out, she's on the scale, she screams and falls down. Her whole family comes running in and she's like, I'm a total fatso. And then we cut to the parents and brother discussing this with her over the breakfast table. Has anything changed so far?
Yes, she is concerned that she gained, what was it, like a pound or like 5 pounds or whatever.
In the dub, it's going to be half a pound.
Everybody in her family is like, at first seems really sweet about it. Like, oh, like, it's not a big deal. But you do like eat a lot more than study. You don't ever really exercise. You don't do any of this. So like, yeah, you're going to keep gaining weight.
Some mixed messaging there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the dub, they're a little more, they're like, Usagi, or Serena, they don't say Usagi, Serena, you can't skip meals. That's not healthy. The brother's like, yeah, it's only half a pound. And the dad's like, what? Really? Half a pound? Like, this is nothing. And then this is where they undercut it a little. They go, you'll work it right off on your 100-yard dash to school. It was like, okay, whatever.
That's kind of funny, though.
They were a little more consistent in their messaging. And we cut upstairs. Luna is holding a piece of paper against the window. Luna's a cat. Luna's holding a piece of paper against the window and scribbling on it with a pencil. And I was like, how is Luna doing this? I was wildly distracted. Luna's drawing a picture.
She's never done it again either.
No, she's always been like, I can't do these things. I'm a cat. But in this episode, she needed the ability to draw because she's drawing a picture of fat Sailor Moon, like very fat, like round Sailor Moon. It's clearly meant to be insulting. She says something like, is it true you're like worrying about gaining weight? You're obsessed with dieting right now? I'm drawing a picture of my favorite Sailor Scout, and it's the fat Sailor Moon. And it was just so mean and out of nowhere. And right after her parents were like, don't obsess with dieting. And Luna's like, you're fat.
Yeah.
It was really weird. It was very weird.
It made a little bit more sense, I think, in the sub, actually, because everybody was kind of like gently chiding her. I can't even remember exactly what Luna said, but she was kind of following along the same vein. And she's like kind of almost being sweet, and then shows her this picture. And she says, this is you in 6 months.
If you'd actually set up the idea of you don't need to obsess over like your weight gain, but you do need to do some exercise and think about your eating, it might have made more sense. But since they were clearly trying to walk that back, this was so much meaner and so much counter to the spirit and so much more out of nowhere that it was like, wow, Luna, jeez.
I'll bet they thought it was funnier to do it that way, because I almost think it's funnier in the sub. The words that she's saying are very sweet, and then she shows her the picture, and it's like the contrast of, but this is you in 6 months if you don't change.
I'll say that in the dub, if you're like, we want to walk back this mean messaging about fat stuff and be like careful with our messaging, and then you still do the Luna joke, they're actually kind of failing at their own mission, because like you said, it hits so much harder, it's less funny, it's meaner, and it's just like, what the heck? Where did that come from, Luna?
But I mean, Luna's a bully, and that's their humor.
Yeah.
Is bullying.
Well, the dub consistently is just, let's go for the easy joke, which is Luna is mean to Serena, and they don't do that as much in the sub.
Or everybody is mean to Serena.
So then we cut to the Negaverse people. Beryl is talking to Jadeite. I did like this. She goes, what news, Jadeite? And he goes, very good news. And she goes, yes, we must continue our efforts. And it was like, why did you ask him? No information was exchanged.
They don't even talk to each other until much later in the episode. At this point in the sub, we haven't even seen Jadeite. We don't even know that there's like a nefarious plot going on for till much later.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they just introduce it now because Beryl goes, the humans are so vain. And Jadeite's like, yes, they expend an absurd amount of energy on crazy diets and frenetic activities they call fitness. And then they like laugh evilly, and I guess that's their plan, is they're going to go harvest that energy.
Yeah.
So set that up quick. We cut to Sailor Moon talking to some of her school friends on campus, and it's Molly and a sort of dark-haired girl and a fat girl who like we basically never see again, although with the wisdom of a few episodes, I will say they do occasionally appear. But at this point, I didn't think they were ever going to appear again. And I felt like they'd introduce the fat girl just for this conversation.
The timing is still interesting.
Oh yeah, it was still like literally related to this. We got to talk about this conversation in detail because first of all, it's fucking weird. It's weird on the dub side, but I recall it being even weirder and completely different on the sub side. So they were trying to tone down the messaging on this side. Molly is saying, "Your parents let you diet?" in her Brooklyn accent.
No way! Your parents let you diet? My mother says girls our age should never diet. But we're 14!
The dark-haired girl is like, "Are you really going on an extreme diet? I want to go on it too. Let's totally quit eating." And I'm like, "That's a bad idea. Nope. Yeah, and then the fat girl is like, "That's bad for you." And then she does like a little, like, she gets on a soapbox. Deke takes her throat and starts sending words out of them. And Deke says, "If you want to lose weight, cut the junk." And stuff like milkshakes. And she starts listing all these desserts. And then everyone goes, "What a sacrifice." And then we're going to have the boyfriend bit. But how does it match up so far?
It doesn't. Well, sort of. in that diet is a topic. And they're all talking about it. And they all kind of, it felt very culty. Like the way that they all kind of talk at the same time and look at her. So the girl, who I don't know what her name is, but I feel like we can't keep calling her the fat girl.
Well, I did find out later in the episode they call the dark-haired girl Brandy, and I wrote her name down, but I don't know that the fat girl even has a name. Oh. I'm going to look this up. I'm Googling Sailor Moon fat girl to see if it's going to give us anything. And Usagi's fat friend was an unnamed background character. It's literally, the wiki article is titled Usagi's fat friend. She doesn't have a name.
Wait, but the skinny one does? Like, she's not seen either again.
How dare she?
Wow, that is some skinny privilege.
Okay, that one says Usagi's skinny friend, but they definitely called her Brandy later in the episode. Yeah, in the first English dub, Brandy was mentioned.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Usagi's fat friend doesn't have a name.
So let's give her a name. What's her name? How about Sandy?
A brief period where we forget all names in existence. Sandy and Brandy. Okay.
Yeah. So Sandy is talking about all of these different diets she's been on. She's like, I can't remember all of them except for one where she tried eating pineapple. And I'm like, was it only pineapple or what? Like, I've never heard of that as a diet. So she has tried all these different kinds of diets. All of the other girls are leaning it. And she's like, yeah, and it didn't work. And they're like, oh, we know. It didn't work.
That's right. I remember that there's a couple points where they just burn her.
Yeah.
Like group burn.
She said something else about, I think this might have been the dating one, because the skinny girl goes, so Brandy, I hate these like modifiers of their, the skinny one. She is saying like, well, you know, the best diet that I've ever had is just falling in love. So I want to fall in love. And they're like, oh, have you? And she's like, no. And they're like, yeah, we know.
Which was kind of funny at that point. In the dub, she says, I always lose weight really fast when I get a new boyfriend, which was alarming and had implications. Yeah. And they go, what? A boyfriend? Who is it? And she's like, it's Michael. And they're like, that motor mouth? Because he always runs his mouth off. And they're like, are you saying my boyfriend's dumb? And this is like almost the end of the conversation. There's a little more after this about Miss Haruna. And I was like, I think this is completely novel and made up, except for the I want to fall in love as a diet, which has its own set of confusion. Yeah. So in this one, she's just like, I lose weight when I get a boyfriend, which is, I got questions, but what do they say in the original sub?
I don't remember, but they do spend some time talking about Miss Haruna because they're like, have you noticed how good she's been looking lately? And she kind of walks by. Yeah. And I don't remember this one specific moment from the dub, But in this sub, she swings her hair and goes, "Hi, girls." And there's sparkles because they're all like, "Oh, she looks so good." And then she saunters off.
I mean, I do have written down sparkle teacher, so.
Oh, so it did happen. Okay.
You should try talking to Miss Haruna. She's been on a fitness kick lately. I'm trying to do Molly's Brooklyn accent.
A fitness kick.
Maybe you should talk to Miss Haruna. She's been on a really major fitness kick lately. She has? For sure.
And then, yeah, she walks by sparkling. Melvin pops up. He's got pictures of her in, like, exercise clothes, which is alarming. He says she dropped them from the purse, but they're like, "Where'd you really get these?" And they chase him down. He's like, "I stole the photography club camera and took them."
They got so
So
specific.
Melvin's a creepy stalker.
They left it more to like subtext in the Japanese. They chase him down. Did they have the scene in the alleyway where Serena catches him? Okay, yeah, because he thinks that she's gonna beat him up or something over being a creep, but she just wants to know where the gym is.
I feel like in the dub, they were trying to spin it. The thing he did wrong wasn't stalking her and taking her pictures. The thing he did wrong was secretly taking the photography club camera. That's the vibe I got. Like they were trying to like tone down the creepy stalker angle. I don't know. Serena just goes, "Oh, Melvin, you were too weird. So tell me where Miss Serena's working out." And I was like, okay.
Okay.
Then we cut to the girls. They're standing on a sidewalk. They're looking at a window. I think it's implied there's like an aerobics instructor lady in the window. It doesn't really explain, but she's like, "Come on, give me all your energy, work out." And it's implied that she's in the window, but it wasn't clear.
Watching this subtitled just gave me so much more important context that was missing from the dub. And again, the Japanese just has like so much more interesting details that all just get sliced. And this part is just even so much funnier to me, and I'll tell you why in a second. So they have this whole building and there's this giant screen on the outside and they're like, "Oh my God, isn't that the actress such and such?" And they're like, "Oh my God, she's so kawaii." She's like working out and she's like, "Do you want to look like me? Come on in here." And it's like this whole commercial. And so then my brain is flashing to Jadeite straight up hired an actress to shoot a commercial for the outside of his gym.
I also really like that he did tell her to slip in an ominous line like, "Give me all your energy."
You probably wrote it.
I love that. And I like that because in the Japanese one they're doing a little bit of commentary on actresses and wanting to look like actresses, and then they just slice that right out of the dub. The dub, it was like kind of implied she was in the building, maybe?
I remember being very confused about locations of where people were, timing. They like really slice this one to hell. But in the Japanese, I just have to say, like, after so many episodes of Nephrite, it makes me so happy to be back with Jadeite.
I love him. He's like, okay, so he's lurking ominously in silhouette, and then he's like, "Ha ha ha ha, my plan is going great." This, at least in the dub, we cut to they are inside the building now. They're meeting Jadeite, who is in disguise, by which you mean he's wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
Looks like a sexy fitness leader. "My name is Jed," which I really liked. I wrote Jed. So I'm going to call him Jed for the rest of the episode.
Okay.
And all the girls are really flustered, which implies they think he's cute. But I know they cut some stuff here because we then just cut to they're working on the exercise machines and there's some muscular trainers standing around. But I swear there was more setup for these trainers in the sub.
Yes, there was also, I think, maybe a longer conversation in the hallway where they're all constantly blushing at everything that he says. And I do also want to point out that when we first see him in his trainer getup, and we kind of pan up, and this is the female gaze, ladies. We don't often get the female gaze in media. But we pan up, and there's this whole background of hearts and flowers behind him. Because they're like, "Oh, it's so cute."
So again, not to flash back too hard on like I remember, but in the sub, they lean really hard on this plan is based on the sex appeal of these men who are being weirdly flirty with these 14-year-old girls who are very into it. On the one hand, I do love, like you said, female gaze. On the other hand, it's fucking creepy.
These are adult men.
And they really lean hard. Look at all these hot male trainers and look at all this flirtation.
I don't really feel like there was a whole lot of flirtation to me. I did write down some of the stuff that he said. So now we have them working out and they're all kind of like telling them to go harder and faster and whatever at working out. And Jed Oh, he says this to Molly, by the way, because she's getting really tired and they're all working out, and then like Serena disappears, and they didn't even explain this in the dub. And so Molly's like working out still, and this is when he goes, "If you slack off, you won't become beautiful, and you have such potential." And she starts working out harder. And I'm just like, oh my God, the pickup artist vibes are so strong in this episode.
Yes. Yeah. And they cut most of that from the dub and reworded it. And they really cut a lot of the like beauty fitness stuff, which was, on the one hand, I kind of get why they cut it. But on the other hand, it makes it weirder because like, what's this episode even about at that point? Yeah. I will note, I'm looking back, and the episode before this was the talk radio episode. And you might remember that in that one, Jadeite hires a monster who's like, I'm gonna have this radio show and I'm gonna have you, my boss, be sexy on this radio show. And we were like, this is where Jadeite's like, oh, my power is sex appeal. And he just is like, I'm gonna start a business and I'm gonna do the sex appeal and I'm gonna go with this angle. And I really liked that he was like, I've learned this is where I'm going. I'm branching off on my own. And so this was the episode where he starts his own business and wields sex appeal.
I just want to wax poetic on Jadeite for a moment, because Nephrite wishes he could. Nephrite wishes. And I know that this is a little bit skipping ahead into the future, y'all, but obviously there are way more henchmen than just Jadeite. But Jadeite specifically, I think this man just wants to be a small business owner. I don't think that he cares about the Negaverse. He just wants, because he's always starting small businesses. Always.
Yes. And that's why he's like hiring like commercials, like, and his businesses are wildly successful.
Yes.
I agree. I totally agree. And it's nice to see him like really blossoming in this episode. So we have the fitness people. They almost don't show them at all. So this is where I said they cut them way down, but they're standing there. The girls are working out. They're saying, you're all doing great. Keep it up, girls. Molly's like, Brandy, are you done yet? And Brandy's like, almost. And then we cut to Jada. They can't be done. Lol. Ha ha ha. Molly just starts biking way faster.
Oh, that's the, you have such potential. And she's like, I'm going to be beautiful. I'm going to be beautiful.
But they don't really have him say anything to her to start that. She just starts biking faster. And then he goes, great job. You're done. And I was like, what? Because he literally just said they're not going to be done. We got to get all their energy. As a reward, you get access to the beauty spa downstairs. And that's where we're going to get into that thing. But they're going to change it. It's not going to be a shape braid. It's going to be something else. But here we go to Sailor Moon in the bath. Sailor Moon's like, I'm glad I bailed on exercise early. That was exhausting. But then we cut right away from that again. So that was all we got to see for her. We cut to the other three who did not sneak out of gym training early and therefore are going to die. No, not really. But they have gone downstairs to the special spa. And it's in a dark room, and there's these glowing, like alien pod looking things with vines coming out of them that look about as evil as something could look. And they're like, what are these?
They look like giant tampons.
And Jadeite's like, don't be scared. These are relaxation pods. Get in, and in under a minute, you'll be completely relaxed. I don't think that's what he said in the sub.
No, he said something about this is where the real magic of losing weight happens. Well, he calls it the shape ray. This is what Miss Haruna used. They realized, oh, this is how she lost so much weight in just a matter of days, is probably this. Because they know that she's been going to this gym. So then they're like, yeah, I want it. They like want in. And then side note, if a creepy man who took me down into a basement with several giant tampons hooked up to cords told me to not be scared, I would fucking run, man.
It's like, don't be scared is about the creepiest thing you could say.
Yeah.
So they changed them from beautifying shape pods, weight loss pods, to relaxation pods. So here we see again, they're deep making these little changes, or big changes. And I guess they decide to get in the pods. We don't see that. We cut to Queen Beryl watching with her crystal ball, which I don't think actually happened. And then we cut back to them getting out of the pods. They look like death. They're gaunt. They got dark rings under their eyes. They're exhausted. They look very relaxed.
Because they're so tired.
Jadeite's like, oh, you guys, I can tell that was great for you. You have a glow. They've worked wonders. We cut to him thinking, wonders for the Negaverse. And I really liked that.
I think they literally moved up the conversation between him and Queen Beryl to earlier in the dub episode, because this is the moment that it happens. She kind of calls him up and he's like kind of flickering. Their ways of communication are very confusing to me. I still don't understand like the rules of their magic and how it works.
Inconsistent rules.
He's explaining his plan to her at this time. And then she's like, oh yeah, how's it going? And he goes, these foolish women want to lose weight no matter what. So remember, kids, the health and wellness industrial complex is really just a nefarious nega plot.
Yes. Then we cut to Serena outside, and she's feeling really bad because she hasn't eaten. Her stomach's growling. A little kid walks by with some what are probably not donuts, but in the American they call them donuts. And she tries to convince the kid to give her a donut, and he obviously freaks out and goes, "Mom," and goes running off. And she's like, "He's so selfish."
That's pretty funny.
And she bumps into Andrew, who's concerned that she looks like she's about to faint. What did they call them? Were they donuts?
They were pork buns. Yeah, pork buns.
But Deke does not believe in American children understanding foreign foods.
No. So she basically like almost falls onto, well, she does fall onto Andrew and then mentions to him that she hasn't eaten in days. So she has been starving herself. Yeah.
They cut that. They cut how long she hadn't eaten. She says she feels dizzy, and then she has like a dream that she's dancing with Andrew Motoki.
Yeah.
The video, he's the blonde video store clerk.
Yeah.
I can't remember if they actually had introduced him at this point.
Yes, they had.
And in the dream, he goes, "It's not good for you to stop eating. You should have a big steak with french fries and a milkshake." And she's like, "Oh, what an amazing man." But then we cut to her waking up. This is where I suddenly was like, where are they? Because he works in an arcade store. We've been in the arcade store. It's full of video games. But this looks like a therapy room. It was weird. It's got like a lounger in the middle of it. It's got bulletin boards. It's maybe the staff room, but it's very unclear where he's taken her. But she's lying on like a lounger. One of the signs on the wall behind him says either Evil War or Civil War. And I really wanted to know more about that.
I just noticed that they had like numbers on there and I couldn't tell if they were fractions or dates.
I noticed that too. I was like, what's going on? I like we're both this time we're very distracted by what's going on in this room.
Yeah. And they definitely obviously added all the steak and milkshake, like all that stuff. And you know what? I kind of actually like that change because it was just a little bit more her expounding upon her crush in her daydream, but like basic crush stuff.
What was it in the sub?
You'll be healed with love. They're like about to kiss and then she wakes up.
This is also another conversation they changed because in the dub, Andrew says, "You've made me realize that I want to be a doctor."
I remember that.
And then she's like, "What? You don't want to work at the arcade store forever?" And he's like, "No, I got to finish up my school and stuff, but I want to be a doctor." And then she's like, "No, I don't want you to go." And he's like, "That's all right. It won't be for a while. And let me take you out for lunch." And she's like, "Yay." That was a very different conversation than I think they had in the sub.
He tells her, and this is where I was like, y'all's hearts are in the right place, but you're missing the mark. Where he tells her, you don't need to starve yourself, and like it's really not healthy. You're still young. And then he goes, plus, I always preferred curvy girls myself. And then that is what clicks for her.
He does the whole, like, I like girls with a little more weight, which I almost like as a message. So one thing I really notice is that both the Japanese and the dub are definitely trying to do some sort of message about not being weird about weight.
Really failing.
They're both kind of failing in very different ways. And one thing that's interesting is that the English one almost completely, they tried very hard to completely disconnect all the discussion of weight from attractiveness. So they would still talk about weight, but nobody would ever link it to attractiveness, which on the one hand can be kind of nice because you're removing that whole even like association. But on the other hand, it's a little bit like disingenuous maybe because that's really why teenage girls are worrying about this. They're not like, "Oh, I'm unhealthy." Like none of the teenage girls are like, "Oh no." And then the other thing with the dub just tried to just be like, "No, you don't need to do this. Like maybe don't eat so much junk food." But the sub leaned much harder on you might be kind of being unhealthy, but maybe not. And you could be pretty this way or maybe this way. And it was in some ways a more nuanced message in the sub. The interactions I thought among the girls and things all rang a little more true in a relatable way to me, even if they were less like pitch perfect healthy. They felt more like something I could relate to as a teenager.
Yeah, I agree with that. I still really don't like the message. I actually really hate that it came from Andrew, who's supposed to be her crush or whatever. Now it's about what he finds attractive. You have just switched now from like, oh no, I don't find skinny girls attractive. I find curvier girls attractive. Either way, it shouldn't matter. Yes, it's okay to have preferences, but in terms of like a teenage girl's weight, I would recommend that you not care about what they find attractive and find yourself attractive instead, and like learn to love yourself and take care of yourself.
And here is where I do feel a little torn, because I do think that there is some value though in acknowledging that like different people have different beauty standards, because sometimes the message is like, yeah, skinny is attractive, but you shouldn't worry about that. And so sometimes it's like, no, lots of things are attractive. You still, maybe that shouldn't be your primary focus. So it's such a weird topic. It's hard. And the 90s was extra weird about it.
That's when heroin chic was a big deal.
Oh gosh.
The Japanese isn't even saying that lots of people find lots of different things attractive. That could be a message. Self-love, I think, would be more important.
Neither of the groups did great. I hesitate.
Yeah.
I think I do kind of feel like the dub, without doing great, at least took out most of the stuff I found really upsetting. They didn't really replace it with anything meaningful, but they did at least tear out a lot of the weird stuff. Although they didn't tear out all of it. We still had stuff like, I lose weight really fast when I'm in a relationship, which was like, questions. Yeah, so we cut outside. She runs into, after having her, glowing interaction with Andrew, and I guess she went to lunch and got lunch with him, but now she's also eating, again, they're probably not donuts, but they call them donuts.
They're pork buns.
I assume they're steamed buns. And she runs into Darian, and he says, hey, meatball head, or should I call you donut head, since you're, eating all those donuts. They kind of bicker. It was actually pretty cute. And then he goes, aren't you even going to offer me one? And so she throws a donut at him, and he catches it out of the air and says, thanks, and walks away eating it. And he goes, but that was a bad throw. Maybe you should work out some. And she goes, someday I'm going to bean him good, but it won't be with a donut. And I was like, I love you guys. It was actually pretty cute.
I actually like that change from the sub, because in the sub, he makes a joke about her being fat because she's eating so many and that she needs to go on a diet. And then she gets so mad that she chucks it at him. This is actually kind of funny, where he catches it and compliments himself. He goes, ooh, good catch. And then like eats it.
Yes, I remember that, because he does, and I think he says it in English. He goes, nice catch. Nice catch. Yeah. And I remember that. He catches it and compliments himself. And that was amazing. But his whole vibe where he just comes at her and starts was like wildly weird. And also the whole thing where when you keep calling her fat, that whole episode, people kept talking about her being fat, and she's visibly not drawn as fat. And that's the sort of thing you saw all the time in the 90s, was people being called fat, but not depicted as fat. And I think it really messes with your like self-image as a kid. Oh, in addition to fat, you would also see like, you're ugly. Like they would call people ugly when they were visibly not. And it just really confused me as a child.
It's called gaslighting.
Yeah. And as a kid, you're like, it just leads you to be like, maybe I am fat. Maybe I am ugly. Because like all these people on TV keep being called fat and ugly.
I remember in high school thinking I was fat. And then it wasn't until probably decades later, I'm looking back at pictures and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking?
You were never fat.
I legit thought I was.
That is never a descriptor that came across my mind. And again, not that it would be a problem if you were, but it's like the gaslighting to be like thinking you were when there was like,
well, I mean, stuff like this doesn't really help, because it's like, oh my God, I must.
No.
Yeah. We just have such a distorted view, especially at that age.
While they're trying to teach you something, they're just kind of undermining their own message and driving home the idea that this is a really important topic and you might secretly be fat and not know it. And people might think you're fat and you might not know it. Oh, and then we cut to, once again, Luna being just weirdly out of nowhere mean. Serena's talking to her. Luna's like, I can't remember if she says you are fat or you're going to get fat because you ate so many donuts. And Serena is like, Luna, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have any discipline or self-control? And Luna's like, well, not eating's not going to solve that. You were a total piglet in that restaurant. And then how many donuts have you eaten?
Wow.
And then she basically says, if you kept normal eating habits, you wouldn't have been doing this. And then she says, you're not fat. Focus on the Negaverse, which was like very mixed messaging, Luna. You are all over the board here.
Deke Luna is such an abuser.
She is mean. Also, again, I think we've talked about this before, but Luna saying this with a mom voice has a very different vibe than Luna saying this with a fellow teenage girl voice.
Yes.
Because it's like power dynamic thing. Yeah,
because she sounds like an authority. Passing out onto him, he was like, should I take you to a doctor? And she goes, no, I'd rather go to a restaurant.
I remember that. That was so good. I liked that.
Yeah. So when she's on this park bench eating the buns, Luna is like, he said he preferred curvy girls, not fat girls.
I forgot that. That was mean.
Yeah. Serena starts like counting how many buns she's eaten. She's like, oh my God, I've been overeating, like starts freaking out. And then Luna is like, okay, but we need to talk about well, she doesn't say Negaverse, but something weird is going on at that gym and we need to go check it out. She's the one who planted that in Serena's brain and then is mad at her for not being focused.
In both versions, she's the one that keeps bringing up Serena's weight and then getting on her for caring about her weight and then getting on her for not focusing on the Negaverse when stay on topic, Luna. You are the cause of this.
Yes.
Yeah, because in this one, Sailor Moon goes running off and she's like, wait, we have to talk about sailor business. And I'm like, Luna, you weren't talking about sailor business. Also in this one, she does not bring up the gym or that anything's weird's going on. So it's going to be very strange when she's investigating later. But there was a moment, and it's not at all politically correct, but I thought it was a very funny image, is that Sailor Moon, as she's running away, goes, I'm becoming a blimposaurus!
Oh my God.
I really liked that. Like, it's not good, but it was very funny.
I read about how, like, in the 90s and early 2000s, adult writers were creating all of these, like, weird, like, blimposaurus and sleazoid and freakazoid, like, all these words, like, to be cool for the kids, like, to appeal to the kids.
Yes.
I don't know that we ever, like, used any of those, though.
No, I don't think so. I had never referred to anyone as a blimposaurus in my whole life. And that's my failing.
Blimposaurus.
Well, the one that I've never forgotten, the 90s language, is because it was like we had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode that we watched over and over, like on VHS. And it had like a preview for another episode on it. And it was an episode where there were these elves, ice elves, I don't know. But they were like 90s cool. And there's a part where they go, cool, Daddy-O, we are frozen. And that is something no human being has ever said in their life.
They were trying so hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we cut to, she's run off because she's a blimposaurus. And we cut to her in the gym and she's biking intensely and everyone's looking on in wonder because now she's motivated. And Luna has followed her because she was like, we got to talk about Sailor Moon business or whatever. And she notices that Miss Haruna's walking by and that Miss Haruna looks kind of worn and tired. And she says, oh, she looks like she's in a trance. And so she follows her. And then as she's going down the stairs towards the evil room, she's like, I sense strange vibrations, which was just a weird thing for Luna to say because it's not like a power Luna has. She also goes, as she's walking downstairs, goes, meow, which was like very weird and out of place.
She almost never meows, even though she's a cat.
No. And she clearly wasn't meowing on the screen. So I don't know if they wanted to remind the audience that she was a cat. Like, I don't know why they added that. So she comes down and she sees Miss Haruna in the pod having her energy drained. And I guess she can tell it's evil because it's glowing. And she sees Jadeite, who is not in his disguise. So she's like, oh my God, it's Jadeite. I don't remember if he's in his disguise or not, but she recognized him. And Jadeite is thinking, your teaching days will soon be over.
Like how do you know she's a teacher?
I know, right? I feel like in the Japanese, at some point, he's just like, you're going to die. Like, or it's much stronger, but they were like a little more like coy about it in the English, probably because they weren't allowed to just be like, you're going to die. So Luna goes running off to get Serena. And this scene was kind of weird. I felt like maybe they cut some stuff because she just runs into where Serena's working out, meows, runs off. Serena chases after her, and then she jumps at Serena with her claws and holds a claw to her face and is like, listen, the Negaverse is here and you're going to check it out. And it was like, this seems unnecessarily threatening. You haven't even tried to talk to her once and you're already like at like claw point threat. So
yeah.
Is that how that happened in the sub?
So I remember being very confused about that. She actually had tried to talk to her a couple times. So like she tried to talk to her on the bench. This is in the Japanese where it's clearer that she's like, you need to go check out like what's going on over there. But then of course she has just dropped this bomb that she's still fat or whatever. And so Serena goes running off to like go work out. And then she's like outside the window of the gym and she's like, oh my God. Like now she's just working out and I can't get her attention. Mm-hmm. She does try to go in and like jump on her while Serena's on the bike or something to be like, something is going on here. We need to check it out. But I think Serena just like brushes her off, I'm guessing, because then she goes and is like, that's when she sees Miss Haruna and then finds out like specifically. And then as she's coming back up the stairs and Serena, I guess, is done with the bike at this point and walking out, that's when she's like, all right, bitch, like you're going to listen to me.
Yeah. Cause I remember that there'd actually been a couple brush offs and that was why she suddenly cause in the dub, it's just like, I just wrote, this seems unnecessary.
Yeah. I remember that.
I also kind of remember that for how it was kind of weird, but I do remember that, and it didn't come off as cool in the dub, but in the sub, like, even though it was kind of weird, like the claw, like attack thing was pretty cool. Like,
yeah,
she was very intimidating.
I actually felt the frustration as well because this almost felt like a little bit out of character for Serena. Like, I know that it's hard to get her to focus. I mean, she's an ADHD queen, right? But like, she is so hyper focused on her weight and working out and looking attractive and whatever that she is just not listening. And this is Luna's fault, you know?
Luna, you set this up.
Yeah, but like I found myself getting kind of annoyed with her.
Yeah. And it's good to remember too that this is episode 4. They were pretty new in both being a hero and in working together. And I think maybe it was intended to be a little more of like them trying to like get their teamwork vibe going, like try to like find that balance. They were still searching for it.
Yeah.
So in that regards, it's kind of interesting. Like, again, Luna is doing some like distracting her and then being like, why are you distracted? And like, they're not both on the same page about getting things done. But it did feel, because normally like if you were like, your teacher's in danger, Serena would be like, oh yeah, I gotta go deal with that. But it was episode 4, so maybe not.
She literally in the sub is saying, Miss Haruna is going to die if you don't go and deal with this. And so that's like, and it's still not getting her attention.
Wow, which seems weird. And maybe that's why they cut it, because that does seem a little like out of character for her to be that.
Yeah, like dismissive of it. But you reap what you sow, Luna.
They go down. So she's like, it's Sailor Moon business. Transform, and Sailor Moon transforms. They go down and Jadeite's still watching the teacher and Jadeite's going, this will definitely be her last treatment. So that again implies she's going to die. Although again, they're still being a little more cagey about it. I wrote, yikes. And then Sailor Moon comes in and is like, I'm here to stop you. And I did like that Jadeite for a minute just plays innocent and he goes, oh, there must be some mistake. And she's like, no. But I really liked that. I was like, yeah, go for it. Because, so many times they just give it up immediately. And I like that he was like, I am in my disguise. This is a pod. Like, it's not clear I'm doing anything wrong. But then he sicks the gym bros on her. So they all attack. He goes, time for a workout on her, which raises questions. Like, I don't think that's how that grammatical structure works.
I don't love the other jokes that could be made from that.
I know, right? I was like, and she goes, oh, they're bigger than I realized. Wait, oh God. Wow. Okay. I'm going to remove my brain from that place. And Jadeite teleports away, and Sailor Moon's like, Luna, help. And Luna's like, no, you're Sailor Moon. You got to fight him. And Sailor Moon runs away, and Luna's like, no. Here's the part where I thought they might have changed something, just because we had one of those things where the facial expression didn't match the words that were being said. Because Luna, as she's running away, Luna's trying to get Sailor Moon to go back, and she goes, you got to save Miss H. And this is usually the type of thing that does get Sailor Moon to like focus, is like getting her worried about other people. But Sailor Moon says, you're right, she's still in there. But the weird thing is, she's got a big smile on her face while she says this.
Yeah.
Oh no, Miss Haruna's still inside while smiling. And I was like, they did some shenanigans there. But then she does turn around and go running back, and she punches one of the bad guys in the gut. She kicks another guy in the face, and then they play that animation 3 times in a row, which was kind of weird. And then the third guy like throws a dumbbell, which breaks the machine.
Oh yeah,
Miss Haruna's in.
Didn't she say Sailor Moon kick at one point? She goes like, Sailor Moon kick.
If she said it, I don't remember it, but I love that for her.
So I know, and because she does it again in another dub episode, and it's like one of my favorite things ever. Like Sailor Moon kick, like Falcon punch, but Sailor Moon.
Yeah, there we go.
So the thing that they changed, and why she was having a big smile, was that the way that Luna motivates her. She goes, "If you fight, you'll lose weight." And she goes, oh no. And so then she goes into this weird, like, each punch is like 1 sweat, 2 sweat, 3 sweats for love, or something weird like that. Yeah. So that's why she's excited to fight.
Okay. So I you know what? Again, like, I kind of appreciate the change, because like that's a weird vibe.
It's weird how much Deke is growing on me. Like
this episode, they did okay. So then Sailor Moon does her tiara action attack, and I was like, this is the point where I realized for the first time that these are not just male monsters, because I was like, oh, it's our first male monsters. But it was not, because this is where the attack shatters. They have these like gold, they've got their own tiaras on. They're all wearing tiaras. So picture these big muscle bros wearing tiaras. The tiara attack shatters the tiaras on their forehead, which have never been brought up or pointed out before. And then she's like, oh, I'm so glad they're not real bad guys. She goes, are you guys okay? And then they're like, oh my gosh, what happened? And they all wake up as normal dudes. And I was like, they were normal dudes the whole time.
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess I didn't realize that either. But Luna does point out, I think before she starts running off at first, she's like, you need to destroy the gold circlets that they're wearing. And we see a couple close-ups of them.
So she actually like mentioned it, planted the seed somewhere.
And then when she shatters them, she goes, now go back to being good boys.
I do like that, actually. This is the episode where Jadeite is like, you know what? Instead of hiring a female monster, I'm going to run my business myself. I've got a plan. I'm going to hire some help. I'm going to put control tiaras on them. We're going to use sex appeal. Like, I love how much the radio lady inspired him. And he was just like, I got an idea. And it worked really well, honestly.
It really did. If it weren't for those meddling kids.
Yeah, so we cut back to the Negaverse, and Jadeite is talking to Beryl. And this is another scene that I remember they changed, because in this dub, Beryl just goes, I'm disappointed. And Jadeite is like, Sailor Moon is really getting on my nerves. But I feel like, if I remember correctly, in the sub, they say something like, wow, you got so much energy for Miss Haruna, which I found very weird.
Yeah, they did. And she was like kind of congratulating him on that.
Yeah, she was like, great job. Your independent business worked great. You got, and also the implication of like how much, because several times they bring up how much energy they got just off Miss Haruna, which really raises questions why sometimes they get energy from like 50 people. But Miss Haruna is a secret powerhouse, because, oh my gosh, she powered the Negaverse for like a month.
Amazing. I mean, every episode, pretty much.
Yeah.
This poor woman. She just wants love.
And then we end with another scene that they changed. Sailor Moon is again in the bath, and the mom is like, hurry up, your brother's waiting. And then the brother's like, I'm not actually waiting to use the bathroom. I'm playing a joke on Serena. And then we hear her scream, and she's like, I weigh 300 pounds. I broke the scale because he sabotaged the scale.
Yeah.
So what happened in the sub?
Yeah, in the sub, she's in the bath again. Hold on. I think I took pictures of it. So I was trying to take some pics for the Insta feed.
Don't take pictures of teenagers
Oh,
in
I mean,
bathtubs.
not of her in the bath. Damn it. Oh my gosh, one thing.
Melvin, you're so weird.
So to confirm, she did say, go back to being good boys when she wakes up the men.
Nice.
And then she ends with, I bet I just lost a pound or two. And then, so she's in the bath and he's outside. I'm not sure what that setup was, but he goes, Mom, you shouldn't go on a diet either. And then it's like sweeter. And her mom's like, you're right. Usagi should be careful too. Yeah.
It was cute. They made some, I remember that was really cute.
Yeah.
But then Sailor Moon just freaks out because she did gain some weight again.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah, she still gained
kind of
weight.
Weird,
but in my mind, I'm like, well, you probably just put on muscle, and muscle is heavier. So like, of course you would gain weight.
Yeah.
If you're working.
But in the episode, it's kind of weird mixed messaging because they, after all that, they're like, no, it's still a cycle. She's still worrying about her weight. So I'm kind of mixed. I like the sweeter conversation between the brother and the mom. Yeah. But I do kind of get why Deke was like, let's not do the vibe where she's still like, oh no, I gained 2 pounds. Because that kind of does undercut some of your messaging.
Yeah, sure does.
So yeah, this was quite an episode. I'm so glad we got to return to it. I enjoyed watching the dub. Deke did not do perfect. Deke had its own set of problems and inconsistency in its messaging. But I kind of get why they changed the things they changed, because I think they made it less. Maybe it was even just the difference between, dubbing it however many years after it was originally written, in the same way that if they made it today, they would also make some changes that would upgrade it to our sensibilities about teenage girls and weight.
Well, I don't think that they would change it, because now they just seem to be just like directly translating the original.
That's true.
Stuff.
But I mean, more like if they made it or like wrote it, if someone
agree.
was writing this episode today, like I think even the original author would do it differently, because our sensibilities have changed so much.
Yeah, and like realizing the kind of damage that this kind of stuff can do.
Because and I mean, to be fair, I think the author was trying to make a statement that was like, don't worry so much about weight. Everyone involved, like the author was trying to do it, and then Deke was trying to do it. But I think it's just like they had their own set of problems, and they're embedded, like they're so deeply in the culture that they can only kind of make baby steps forward.
Right. And I do have to say, like, especially since we are in the future, and now have watched the new dub, I actually kind of prefer the Deke dub to the new. There's like so much more, like, yes, they change a lot of stuff. Yes, they cut a lot of stuff. They rearrange. They like completely change the meaning of things. The voices are bonkers, but it's like so much funnier, I feel like, which I think was their intention. And then sometimes it's funny unintentionally. And and like even just the weird voices as well add so much color and bonkersness to it.
And as will come up later, there are definitely cases where they do worse, in the sense that like the episode has a really well structured theme and message, and Deke just like does not get it and like does crazy things that are like, what's happening? But this was one where I was like, I think Deke, sometimes they add jokes that are genuinely funny or like just fun, and sometimes they cut out stuff that's genuinely a little concerning, like all the weird flirting with underage girls. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
we do have a Sailor Says, because Deke. So you technically have heard this one before, but see if you can predict what the Sailor Says is.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. Oh, man, every time I want to go with my gut, I feel like I'm wrong. Where it's like, the obvious choice is, hey, don't like diet that's like not good for yourself. You should work out and like have healthy habits, but don't like focus too much on it. So that'll be my guess. We'll see if they went for that, the obvious one.
And you're pretty much right. And I think it's probably not surprising considering that earlier in the episode, they basically just like took the one fat character, Sandy, and
Poor
like
Sandy.
changed her entire, like every single line she had to be like a little like soapbox about dieting. So we have Serena says, starving yourself and exercising till you drop is not a smart way to lose weight. Like a car without gas, our bodies can't run without food, which is, a good start. Actually agree. Of course, Luna has to say something catty because Deke. So Luna says, good nutritional food, which wasn't that bad of a burn, but it did feel like she was making some sort of barb at Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
And then Serena goes, if you think you need to lose weight, talk to someone who really knows, like a doctor. It can save your life. And please remember, real beauty really does come from the inside, which again, not a bad sentiment. Not like really novel or anything, but not bad. And then Luna just makes a weird cat noise. And I don't know why. She goes, and I was like, what was that? I literally looked at the screen. I was like, what's happening? Is she okay? And I noticed on this transcript just says that she says meow, but like she just made weird cat noises.
This voice actress I don't know that she's ever met a cat before.
Yeah. I remember that in the sub, like the whole like claw scene was like pretty cool and intimidating, but in the dub, it is really not because she's making weird fake cat noises the whole time and they are not intimidating.
Wow.
It was very undercut.
So
some notes. It does say that there were no nega monsters in this episode, which is unusual, and that this is the first appearance of Serena's brother, Sammy, in the English dub because he was cut out of the first episode in the dub.
You know what? I wonder if Jadeite specifically tried to just use humans this time instead of losing another really quality employee.
I mean, I love that he was like, I'm going to do it for myself. I'm a strong, independent man, and I'm going to take the advice of that radio lady in the previous episode, and I'm going to see what I can do. And he really does blossom from here, so yeah, good for him.
He really hits his stride. I'm getting a vibe that like,
this is one of the few episodes where Beryl compliments him, so he did great. Yeah. Good job.
I would say that he's actually more successful than Nephrite, who's his follow-up guy. But like, Jadeite / Nephrite, who the audience has not yet met, in the order of this podcast, I'm very much getting like a whole Steve Jobs vibe, like where Jadeite is the one who does all the work, right? Because Steve Jobs had the original. No, I'm thinking of Bill Gates. Right?
Okay, I was like, I don't know.
Hold on.
I'm lost on this metaphor.
It's gonna work. Bill Gates and
this joke requires research.
No, because Steve Jobs didn't actually build Apple, and Steve Wozniak. Yeah, it was another Steve. So it was Steve Jobs. So Steve Wozniak was the actual like. Like they kind of worked together, but Steve Wozniak was like the brain behind building like the Apple computer, and Steve Jobs is just a really good marketer. I feel like that's very much the vibe we're getting between Jadeite and then Nephrite if they had worked together. Well, is like
Nephrite, which you guys haven't met, is very much like pickup artist vibes, very like
he's the marketer,
hustle culture.
He's the YouTube entrepreneur.
Emotional manipulator, like he's much less likable. Jadeite is a good boy.
I miss Jadeite so much. Y'all are lucky that you get several more episodes. Spoilers, all of the bad guys die. Oh man, okay. So what do you think?
I definitely enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the rewatch. I was actually shocked at how rough the subtitled one was also in terms of themes. I thought they were going to do a much better job, but
yeah.
Nobody came out on top on this one.
I would slightly give the win to Deke.
Yeah, actually, well,
rare,
I think they like.
I'm like, I think of the two, like Deke just mostly just cut a bunch of shit and like didn't have much of a message or anything more than platitudes, but you know,
yeah.
and
I will say,
so
I will say this for Deke, like they both had bullying, but at least Deke's bullying was like over the top, like obvious bullying, whereas the type of bullying that was in the Japanese sub was very like it's almost more insidious in a way. I don't know. Like I wouldn't want to be on the opposite end of like either of these. Like just don't bully, maybe. But the one in the Japanese almost sounded like, oh, we're coming from a place of love, you know, like, which I think is like worse in a way, where it's like, well, these people do love me, so I should listen to them. And like clearly this is like good advice that I should care about, you know, but it's actually not. It's just as harmful. I'm not a therapist.
Yeah. I appreciate that culture has really moved forward on our ideas about like body positivity, body neutrality, health at every size, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so if you were to do a Sailor Says, what would your Sailor Says be?
Okay, I want to steal yours because I was just like, Sailor Says, don't climb into a tampon in a creepy man's face. But yeah, something like that. Honestly, that was to me the part that I was just like, what are you guys doing? Although it was, even if they say they say you're going to be totally relaxed in a few minutes, fucking run.
Oh, that's like a warning sign for a roofie. Like
I know, right? You're like, bad things are gonna happen here.
Yeah. Mine's gonna get ultra specific.
Unlike my tampon one, which was very broad.
No, mine is just a commentary in one like 5-second clip from the Japanese one. So Sailor says, if you are an actress hired to do a job, make sure to do your research on the company that is shooting the commercial because you never know when they're an evil nega plot. And you don't want to be advertising evil.
What sort of red flags do you think might have been there for her to spot? Like,
I want to know how much they paid her. Like, where is your check coming from? What is this business? Were they just created yesterday?
Get their money for these? Yeah, where did they get their money for these things?
I don't know.
Maybe they hypnotized her.
They must have hypnotized her or something.
Maybe
which is probably so awkward.
That they do later, where they have a monster that like shapeshifts into her, and then later she's just like, "Who's this person? That's me. I don't remember doing this contract." But she was like asleep in her bathtub the whole time.
Oh yeah, I remember. Could you imagine if you were this actress like walking down the street and you see this giant building playing a commercial that you are in, but you're like, I was not there. Like I don't remember shooting
wild. Be concerned. Talk to your agent.
Yeah. Also, you know, another red flag is if they have giant tampons in the basement that are hooked up to the walls.
Something is dark and yet glowing, like If you are a Negaverse person, make your relaxation pods look less evil.
Exactly. And then here's the thing about the dark but glowing thing. You've got one of two choices there, and they're both bad. Because it's either like Negaverse energy, like it's like evil energy, or it's uranium.
Which is basically real world Negaverse energy.
Yeah. You really don't want that radiation.
It will moon dust you.
Yeah. Well, except it'll be much more painful and long term for like a much longer time.
I think another piece of advice is if part of your employment contract requires you to put a control tiara on your forehead, maybe seek a different job.
Yeah, if they're requiring you, because there are a lot of jobs that require uniforms. But unless you are sort of like drag queen fashion adjacent, nobody should be putting a weird circlet on your forehead.
Why isn't that part of my uniform?
Or if you're like royalty, literally, then I guess, you know, you're allowed.
Yeah. All right. Well, next episode, which we've already recorded, but for those of people who are listening at home, is number 5 and 6, where we are going to discover that there is no dub. So they've cut another 2 dubs, but we're going to have Scent of a Monster. Chanela will steal your love. And then Protect the Melody of Love. Usagi plays Cupid. So get to find 2 episodes in a row where Deke said, no, thank you.
Yes.
We'll find out why.
And if you're listening to this chronologically, because I think I've actually already uploaded that episode, so this might number wise come in after that one.
Fix them.
I know. I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. Then
I'm not trying at all.
If that is the case, and you have already heard what I'm affectionately referring to as 2-for-1 subs, that episode, then the next one will be So You Want to Be a Superstar in the dub, or Usagi Learns Her Lesson. Becoming a star is hard work. Oh, this is the lady in the bathtub that we were just talking about.
Yeah,
so you'll understand that reference.
Yes, I really liked the second one in the twofer, which was the Melody of Love one, and then the bathtub one was also pretty wild. So good stuff coming up. You will feel so much mentally healthier from your experience. So we wish you all a great week. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week for more Sailor Moon Therapy Hour.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.